Hey everyone, thank you so much for checking out Science Fiction Book Club. These past couple of days, we launched the show. We've been reading Three Body Problem, you and I, Opsa, chapter by chapter on the podcast.
Oh, yeah.
And of course, the reason we picked Three Body Problem, in addition to the fact that it is an iconic science fiction novel, is because Netflix released an adaptation this week as well. And so you and I have watched some of it. I don't think either of us has actually completed the 8 episode. Have you watched all 8?
I have. I will say I'm surprised they dropped all 8 straight at once, but no, I'm only a couple episodes in.
Gotcha. Okay, same with me. I haven't completed all 8. I have completed the first 4, and I have seemingly left off on a big one because people out there are really tweeting about episode 5. Some shit goes down in episode 5, apparently.
A lot goes down in the first 2 episodes, and, we'll get into it.
It's true. Okay, well, tell me about what you thought. You have seen the first 2 episodes. I've seen the first 4. This is by no means like our comprehensive review of the Netflix show, but more of a quick first impressions chat. What did you think?
So let's decide up front. Do we want some spoilers, no spoilers? Are these spoiler free?
I think let's keep it vague. Let's keep it spoiler free.
Let's keep it vague.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. Let's not drop any plot twists. Let's not drop any big reveals. But I think, let's maybe tap dance around it. For the people who know, they know.
That's right. All right. So for those who know, you are aware that the series on Netflix is an interpretation of the book. It isn't a totally faithful rendition of the story, which, from my perspective, was a great choice, honestly.
Really?
And having read most of the book now, I think you and I know, it is super detailed. The science is intense, and it makes for a really, plausible read of a lot of the elements in the story. It doesn't feel like there are many gaps. There aren't too many plot holes in the book. But the Netflix series, obviously couldn't capture that level of detail. And so the way that they're weaving the story together, I think, does a really good job of capturing the major points.
Yeah.
And not leaving too much, empty or missing, not adding too much kind of outside the story itself. But so far, I'm honestly really enjoying it.
Yeah.
I don't know. What are you thinking?
I'm with you. I have really enjoyed the first 4 episodes. I'm also in agreement with you that I was shocked to see that Netflix just dropped the whole show at once. I guess we're still doing binging in the year of our Lord 2024.
That's right.
I tweeted about this earlier this week, but I don't like that at all. I understand that Netflix created the binge, right? They introduced the world to the binge drop. But I think it's actually kind of proven that binge releasing a show kind of kills any and all momentum it could have had to capture the pop culture.
Right.
In any sense. Like if you don't have that week to week speculation and the opportunity to promote week by week by week, like there's obvious Game of Thrones comparisons just because of the creators, of course.
That's right.
And people are calling, at least from the tweets that I've seen online, people are calling like episode 5, or at least the plot twist in this season, as big as the Red Wedding. We could have had like a Red Wedding week.
Wow. Yeah.
But of course, no, like it all just fucking dropped already. And like, if you're talking about it now, you're talking about it. And in 2 weeks, people are going to forget and move on. So it's a bit of a shame. I really wanted this show to succeed. I'm a big fan of the book. You and I are talking about it on the podcast. And so it would have been nice for this show to capture the zeitgeist in the way that something like Shogun has done, right? That incredible show that I've been watching, in the way that House of Dragon does whenever that drops, So I'm a bit disappointed in the binge drop. The show itself, though, I'm really enjoying. First 4 episodes have been spectacular. I'm actually quite shocked how true it is to the book. Like the first episode nearly follows the opening of the book beat by beat.
Totally.
And based off of the promotional materials and the changes that I had already known about going into the TV show, I expected this to be a vastly different adaptation, like maybe borrowing many of the same ideas, but taking it in totally different directions. And so far, I have found that that's not the case. The ideas are pretty consistent with the book, minus some of the small things that you've mentioned where some character things have been changed to accommodate a wider audience, right? This is less a Chinese-centric story, and it's frankly like based almost entirely in the UK. So there have been changes to try and appeal to a more broad audience,
Right.
Which are for better and worse. I think you could feel a certain way about that, good or bad. But I'm really liking it so far. I had a question for you, and this is sort of in a non-spoiler context. The main character of the book is Wang Miao, and
Yes.
Wang Miao does not exist in the TV show. What they've instead done is they've sort of like created this amalgamation of 5 new characters
Right.
who all sort of like adopt certain parts of Wang Miao's story and character arc in 5 different ways.
Right.
Any thoughts on that? I'm curious how you felt.
Yeah, I think that was one of the things that most caught me off guard coming into the first episode and the second one as well. Mainly because I read nothing before going into the show. I'm kind of one of those people that's like, I want no spoilers, no trailers for me.
Oh wow!
I want to go in fresh, and that's how I came into the show. So Wang Miao being absent, and the introduction of Saul and Augie and all of these great characters was a little puzzling to me at first, but obviously I understood it, and I think I'm relatively neutral about it. I don't love it. I don't hate it by any means. I think a lot of it has to do with kind of the teams are just such a present part of a lot of movies these days. Like having kind of the superhero force, that kind of the united band. That is just such a a regular feature of a lot of our television and films. That I think that was a lot of the inspiration there. And it also adds a lot more kind of character richness and depth that Wang Miao sometimes doesn't have. Like his entire relationship with his wife and kid, which we've talked about in the podcast, is pretty shallow. We really get to experience nothing. We know nothing of his wife. We know nothing of her kind of life or backstory.
Right.
So so ultimately, like, I'm relatively neutral to the introduction of the replacements for Wang Miao's character, with the exception of the fact that it is a richer story and a character narrative as a consequence of it. So, I think I've just talked myself into liking it, actually. I think it plays, in fact, really well for a television series.
Well, I think you can tell, to your point about it being a more like a richer character-driven story, I think that was maybe their intention behind creating these new characters, because the book, you and I have chatted about this on the podcast in our episodes, it's a very idea-driven book. The characters definitely take a back seat, and that's not a new criticism. I think folks have criticized the book in that regard ever since it came out. The ideas are still spectacular, storytelling spectacular, but characters certainly can be an afterthought in many instances. I think the Netflix show is really trying to rebalance that equation a bit and bring some more character-driven arcs into the larger-than-life ideas that are present in this story.
Right.
And I think in some instances, it is succeeding. I do find myself cringing a little bit at some other character interactions. In particular, I'm going to say there's a lot of like romantic entanglements that are hinted at, or like romance that never blossomed, or like these two dated but they were toxic. There's some of these like plot threads in there that I am just like, my eyes glaze over when that stuff starts happening, Like, I don't know that I needed like the forced romance plot lines happening within this group. I think they're interesting enough on their own as like scientists, experts, researchers, businessmen who are facing these, existential questions that the book brings up. That alone is interesting without me needing to know that like Augie and Saul are like on again, off again lovers.
Will they? Right. Won't they?
I'm like, I truly don't care what they. I'm more interested in the science.
Yeah.
So I will. That is one of my only criticisms, and it's minor because it is frankly like kind of shallow and barely there. Like if you cut out any scenes where they're talking about their romance, the show basically doesn't change at all. So
I mean, we ultimately know it's not central to the story.
It's not,
so,
yeah.
At the back of our minds is also, this is kind of ignorable, you know?
Totally. And again, to be fair, I understand the intention appears to be more character-driven story, more character investment, more emotion, right?
Yeah, let me rebut that last point with only there is a moment in the first episode when Yang Dong, has this is a minor spoiler, but I think a fair one, when Yang Dong has jumped into the pool. Let's leave it at that. And Saul's reaction and the the reaction of the rest of the group when they meet at the bar, to me, is it feels so wooden and just not authentic to how you would react to something like that, especially with Saul having been the last person to have a conversation with her, and there's just no emotion in that scene, and I'm like, that caught me a little kind of off guard, and in particular, that first episode capturing so much. I mean, a lot happens in just the first episode, in the first two episodes. And them kind of breezing over that, I thought was a little bit of a missed moment to like let that be part of the emotional kind of weight and center of the group's movement.
100%. I think I felt the exact same thing.
Yeah.
But I think to your point about the show moving very quickly, it is only 8 episodes. It's an 8-episode season 1. And I found it funny. Somebody in our Discord asked you how many chapters they should read before watching the first episode, and you were like,
right,
kind of like,
how do I answer?
Like
this?
9 or 10, maybe. Like it goes deep. The book itself is like I think roughly like 30 pages, 30 odd pages. So like the first episode really picks from things that happen like 9-10 chapters in the book.
Do you mean 300 pages?
Oh, I'm sorry, 30 chapters. The book itself is like 30 odd chapters.
Right.
And so like
chapters, that's right.
The first episode pulling from like chapter 9 means like it's moving at a fast pace.
Yeah, I'm certainly looking forward to watching, more of the show and, seeing more of the game, which I think is like one of the really fun vehicles that the show has to explore.
Yes.
And it captures a lot of the ideas of the book in the most like dramatically engaging, fun ways, really. So the pacing of the show, I think, is strong, for the fact that it gives you a chance to explore a lot of the really adventurous, fun things that happen in, really both the game and in subsequent chapters in the book.
Yeah, you're in for a treat. Remind me, has anyone played the VR game yet by episode 2? I forget.
Yes.
Okay.
So
you're in for a treat, though. There was a particular scene, I forget whether it was episode 3 or 4 in the VR game, where I was like, oh, they're nailing it. Like I was like, oh, the VR game. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. That's what I'm looking forward to. I you have to believe it. That's part of the impetus for moving the pace along,
I think that it did an absolutely stellar job with the VR sequences.
Yeah.
In a way, almost, where like reading the book, I was kind of like, this is kind of cringy, weird, like
sure,
almost like written in like a pre-VR world where like before headsets actually existed.
Yeah.
And now that the TV show kind of has the opportunity to live in an Apple Vision Pro world, it kind of presents it in a way that I think is very sci-fi and cool. So it's fun.
Yeah, even just seeing the and they only have the one scene in that second episode of the dehydration and rehydration.
Oh my goodness.
Just so interesting, like such a little gross. I'm not gonna lie.
Yes, really,
actually, see them just shrivel up at really quite gross, but also, some real movie TV magic there.
Yes, you're in for a treat. There's a really cool dehydration scene, I think, in the next episode. So it's fun.
Nice.
It's fun.
Oh, that's awesome.
Any characters or any of the actors really standing out to you? I really like, for example, how Detective Dashi is being played by Benedict Wong, I think is the actor.
Oh.
He's doing a great job.
Yes. An OG. Oh, absolutely. Like you couldn't have had a better casting for Dashi than Benedict Wong. Like he's just nailing it. He basically is who you envision in that role as you're reading the book, and so that casting absolutely nailed it. I think, let me see, I do like Wenji's portrayal, like the actor playing her in the present era. And having read more of the book, I'm really excited to see her character arc unfold over the course of the show.
I couldn't agree more. I, in particular, actually am loving young Yewencia from the 60s and 70s and 80s when the flashbacks happen. There are some really gut-wrenching emotional moments where you feel the tragedy that Yewenji has gone through in her lifetime. And you begin to understand her outlook on humanity, almost, I think, in a way that is more impactful watching it happen than it is reading it happen.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you get to see the betrayals that she's kind of confronted with, and also her resilience in the face of them. It's not like she becomes cowed or kind of backs off or backs down. She stands strong in the face of them. That is actually, that might be one thing that I found as kind of an odd departure from the book, in that Bai Mulin, I believe, in the book, and I think they keep the name in the show as well.
They do.
And they had their romance, and in the end, minor spoiler, but there's a bit of a betrayal, and I think they had an opportunity to play that up a little bit more, because it feels a little bit more intense in the book to me than it does in the show.
Yeah.
But that said, I mean, you are getting to witness her in a really visceral way go through some heartbreaking moments.
Yes.
And you get to see her perspective develop.
I think you make an excellent point, though. There are a lot of emotional moments, particularly in those flashback scenes, that we only really dwell on long enough for it to be an emotional moment, for us, the viewer, to be like, oh, right. Wow, that's tough. Oh, anyway. And we're moving on to the next scene immediately. And the breakneck pace of the 8-episode season does work against it in that regard a little bit. There's not a lot of lingering in the feeling in this show. We move from plot point to emotional point to character point to plot twist, like back to back to back to back to back.
Yes. And I of course, haven't seen a ton of the show just yet, but I have to believe that they're covering the entirety of the first book over this first season.
That appears to be the case, yeah.
Which, I mean, I think that's probably the right choice. But you have to kind of wonder what it would have looked like as a 3-season, or a 2-season kind of imagination of the book. It probably would have gone on far too long, and there are plenty of moments in the book that I just don't imagine would play that well on television. But I'm curious,
No, I agree. I mean, I'm doing some rereading of our upcoming chapters for our next episode. And honestly, I'm having a hard time reading this current chapter I'm in because it's so boring. It's like so long. And it's just like, if you know,
Yeah.
If you've read the book, it's the one where the one guy is telling his story for the whole chapter to Dashi, the detective.
Oh, yeah.
And he's an insufferable character, but then also he's just talking for the whole chapter. And you're like, dude, So for example, glad that character got cut, doesn't exist in the show. Cause he's kind of pointless and purely in the book a vehicle to present and explain the 3-body problem to the reader. He serves no other purpose.
Right.
So I'm glad the show is streamlining things in that sense. So I agree, some cuts certainly necessary, pacing certainly an improvement, but there are instances where you miss some of the emotional impact because we're getting to the next thing quickly, and we got to get through the whole book in one 8-episode season. It's a lot of ideas, a lot of characters to get through. Well, to wrap up, Opsa, obviously we have yet to watch the rest of the show. I'm excited to watch that very big episode 5 that everyone keeps talking about. Any final thoughts, though? Any final, sort of first impressions and thoughts, hopes, dreams for what happens with this show?
I guess as far as what I might hope for the show, well, at this point, even just into the first couple episodes, we've set up some really exciting dramas and some tensions between the various actors that are kind of at work in what is this larger mystery and potentially conspiracy. And I think, yeah, I'm looking forward to just kind of seeing how they tie those together, because we have some impressions from the book of how the story will unfold, but I think they're taking some creative liberties already. So I'm most looking forward to seeing how they choose to interpret, the kind of the grander mysteries and conspiracies in the book. And I don't think it's much of a spoiler to say we know that there's a first contact that unfolds over the course of, the book and the show. And I would love to see some depiction of the aliens on the other side.
Right. That's all.
I don't think we will.
I don't think we will either. But that would be very. Yes. That would be very cool.
Totally.
To see. Well, thank you so much, Opsa, for having this little conversation. Both of us were kind of interested in doing this first impressions after watching a few episodes.
Oh yeah.
But I think once we watch the entire season, we'll have to sit down and do like a more spoiler chat where we get into the nitty gritty of like show versus book and what we really thought about it.
Yes.
And I'm definitely excited to do that once we have both watched all 8 episodes and completed reading the book.
So I do think for both of us, it is go watch it. It's good. I mean, it's worth watching. I don't think either of us are. I think we're both in the camp of this is good television. So be a part of this zeitgeist. It's not going to last long, as you know. They've dropped all the episodes on us all at once. But enjoy this moment. I think it's a good one.
Yes, definitely a recommendation from us as book readers and as fans of the original story of the first book. Loving the show. It's just good television, plain and simple, like you said. So we recommend it for sure. Something else we recommend, though, of course, is our podcast.
That's
Science Fiction Book Club. Very simple to Google this one, folks. Science Fiction Book Club. Listen to it wherever you get podcasts. We're also on YouTube. We are reading through Three Body Problem at the moment. We're going chapter by chapter. We have reading assignments posted so that you can read along with us and then listen to the episodes for each assignment. We want to treat this like a book club, so you, dear listener, are an important part of this show. It doesn't happen without you.
Oh, yeah.
So please get involved. Please find the show. We've already dropped our first 2 episodes, and we are hard at work on the next few as we work our way through this book. We also have our entire Season 1 schedule posted already, so if you're interested in knowing what books are coming down the line, we have that posted, and you can check it out and make sure that you grab yourself a copy so you can read along with us in the future.
That's right.
Links will be in the show description below so you can find everything. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you soon.